All right, hey guys. This video is for entertainment and education purposes only. Any and everything I say could be wrong. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. I just turned the camera on. I'm fucking just waking up, man. Oh my god, dude. I got a lot of shit to do, and I don't even, whatever. My living situation is like a mini homestead, a semi off-grid mini homestead. And have you ever watched there have been like kind of like documentary stuff about homesteads, like people doing homesteads, and it's a full-time job, you know. Living on a homestead is a full-time job, you know? Because shit's breaking down, you know, la-di-da, this and that, you know. It's like the Amish, being an Amish. It's similar, it's like homestead shit, you know. You know. So whatever. Anyway, so my living situation is like a homestead. I've shown, you know, the way my plumbing system works. It's all manual, you know. I don't rely on that kind of stuff. Anyways, whatever. So I always have a lot of shit going on. Whatever the case. But anyway, I wanted to share this with you. I had a little bit of a revelation that I wanted to share. So I watch these crime investigations, right? Like these murder investigations. There's a lot of those kind of videos on YouTube, and they which is one cool thing about YouTube. Like they show the interrogation where they interrogate the murderer or whatever. And I've discovered a very interesting pattern with the interrogation. Okay, so when they're interrogating the murderer, I wanted to share this with you. And you'll notice this if you watch them, especially if I point it out to you, and then the next time you watch one, you'll notice this. So, okay, so I'll just use the most recent one that I watched as an example, but this is very common when they're interrogating a murderer, right? And the murderer doesn't know that the murderer still thinks he can get away with it, like he hasn't been caught yet. Hold on just a second. And so when they're talking about this, you know, this person is missing, right? And they have the murderer in the interrogation room, and they're pretty sure they got the guy. Like they know that this is the guy, right? For example, this guy, the most recent one, they had video footage. So the girl that's missing, they had you know, street cameras and shit that show this girl get into this guy's car, and then she gets into the car willingly, and then you can actually see the car like shaking and moving around, like there's some kind of struggle, and then the door opens and you can see a person trying to get out, and then they get sucked back in, and then the car door slams, and then it's shaking some more, and then the car door opens again, and then it's you know, and of course it's like the lo-fi video, right? It's like a street camera, and so it's like from afar, but you could see all this going on. And the door opens like 3 times, where whoever got in the car, it appears as though they're trying to get out, and that there's a struggle because the car is like moving around. And the door opens like 3 times, and then the person shows some person getting pulled back into the car, and then the door slams shut, and then right. And so then the car all that shaking and stuff, it stops. And then the car just sits there for a little bit. It's in a parking lot, right? And then the car just like pulls away and takes off. And then because there's video cameras on streets, street light cameras, and there's cameras, businesses have cameras. So they're following all this camera, and they see where the car drives up onto the street. And so then they check the street camera, and they get a good view of the police car. Or I mean, not the police car. They get a good view of the car itself. It's stopped at a stoplight, and then it drives, right? And so I'm going to go into this investigation, but I have a point to all this. So in the investigation, they see the car, they don't get an exact make and model, but they get a really good view of this car, and they get a good general idea of what kind of car it is, what's the color, all this, right? So what it is this chick, she's at her job, because she went to go to work at her job, and it's a restaurant. And so she parks her car in the parking lot of the restaurant. And then that's when she goes over to this other car, and she's talking, and then she gets in, and then there's all this struggle with the car and stuff. And then she never gets out of the car, and the car drives off, right? But anyways, so the last time anyone has seen or heard from her, she went to go to her job, and her job says that she never showed up for work, right? So the first thing the investigators do is they go to the restaurant where she worked, and they interrogate everyone. Or they don't interrogate them, they just go in and ask them questions, like, when's the last time you seen her, blah, blah. And so there's one of the main chefs of that restaurant, right? He's like, oh no, I haven't seen her for no. Right. So then what they do is, once they get the video of this car, right? Well, then they start looking at, well, who, and the car was in the parking lot of the restaurant. And so then they look at, well, who at this restaurant, like what the people that work at the restaurant, what kind of cars do they drive? And well, one of the employees drives a car that looks exactly like that car. And so then they're like, okay, I think we figured it out, right? So then they bring the guy in, and they don't let him know. They're just like, hey, they play it cool, oh, we just wanted to follow up, because we're trying to find this girl. And so he willingly goes in. And that's how the interrogation process starts, okay? And so then they're interrogating him, right? And it's a FBI. FBI is interrogating him. And so I want to tell you this. This is my point. So when they're interrogating the guy, they're like, so what's can you tell us a little bit about, this gal, do you know her? How long have you known her? Right? And so they're asking him questions. And one of the tricks to asking questions in the in investigation, the field of investigation, is an important tactic, okay, is to ask open-ended questions instead of yes or no. Closed-ended questions are yes no, and no questions. It's like, did you see her today? That's a yes or no question. No, I didn't see her today. So that's a closed-ended question. But what you want to do, what investigators want to do, is ask open-ended questions. So then the person can, talk. Like when is the last time that you saw her? And then they'll be like, well, then they can talk. Because you want to get them to talk in an interrogation. And so they're asking him open. They, just right like in the very beginning, one of the first open-ended questions they ask him, and then he goes into great detail, and like like you know, too much detail. Like you can tell what he's doing is he is giving this story to them, and so when the open-ended question is asked, it gives him an opportunity to fabricate the story. All these guys, all these murderers, whenever they're under investigation, there's a very specific pattern with these murderers when they're given an opportunity to flesh out their fabricated story. And you know what they're fabricate it's always the same story. It's like, well, yeah, no, I knew her, me and her, we kind of had an open relationship, so even though I was dating somebody else, and she was kind of like, coming on to me and stuff, and so, and I really saw something about her, like she's really, really nice gal. And so, yes, we saw each other a few times here and there, and she was all addicted to drugs. She was just doing lots of drugs, and it was really sad because, I was kind of really wanting to help her, she needed, and so, but she's just like a lot of drug, like she was doing really hard drugs, and it was really sad. And then that was causing problems because she's really doing really hard drugs, and so, she's mentally ill. Like, she's very mentally unstable and very, very doing lots of drugs and very mentally, she's just a mentally ill drug addict, and so, and I'm not, and I'm the chef, and so, and I'm not, and, I really liked her, and it was really a tragic thing that this girl, but she was making all these poor decisions, and she was just a mentally ill drug addict, And outside of that, I don't know. I haven't seen her. We stopped. So yeah, all I know is that she's a mentally ill drug addict. That's all. That's all I know. Right. No, not. So let me go back to the point. I know we're 12 minutes in. The point is that almost every single time, if you watch these murder and like where they're interrogating a murderer, and they start asking that murderer, like, what do they know about this person? It's always the same. Oh, well, that person is a mentally ill drug addict, and is really sad because they're such a cool person. They're just making all these poor life decisions, uh, you know, but they were just, failing to take personal responsibility for their life, and they were making all kinds of poor life decisions, and they were just really addicted to drugs, and some, it was a mental illness, and that's all I know about them. Is even though they're nice people, they're making a lot of poor life decisions, and they're just, that person is just making lots of poor life decisions and failing to take personal responsibility for their life, and just addicted to drugs, and had really just mentally ill. It's really unfortunate, and that's all I know about that person. That now and if you don't believe me, you have to do your own investigate. You have to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. You have to like watch these interrogations of murderers, and to see what I'm saying. It's always like 9 times out of 10, it's always the same stories. Well, that person's just a lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerate. That's all I know. I tried to help them, and they just didn't want help because You know, even though they're a nice person, they're just a lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerate, failing to take person. That's all, right? And then the investigator, they already know the guy's guilty, and then they toy with him. They toy with him and ask him questions to get them to talk more, because then they'll start contradicting themselves in what they say and everything else. And a lot of times, oh yeah, no, I was getting involved in drugs. Yes, I was a bad boy, you know, I did. But I just did it a few times, and I realized that this person was just a total drug addict, though. Even though, yes, I did some coke with them, yeah. But it was, I know it was wrong, dude. I know. And you know, the reason I didn't say this before is because I didn't want to get in trouble. But you know, I'm not a drug addict. But that person's just a drug addict. Yeah. It's really sad. And I tried to help him. Even though I did do that drugs with them, but not like, only a little bit. But they were just like doing it all the time. And that was why I stopped hanging out with them, because I'm not a drug. And it was like really bad, you know. Mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerate. Just, yeah. And then it comes, and then, you know, of course, as the interrogation goes on and the investigation, turns out that this guy is a total piece of shit. And the whole time they were talking about how, oh, it's that person is just mentally ill, drug addicted, drug addict, mental ill. So the point that I'm trying to get to in this video, you see that's projection. You see the projection. Oh, that person, it's that person over there is the drug addict, they're mental ill drug. See, that is what's going on with homelessness. It's the same story over and over. Oh, those homeless people, they're just lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerates. So unfortunate. We need to lock them up. And so yeah, your society, the society that you live in and participate in and engage with, when they talk about global genocide, your society is talking about global genocides and everybody's dropping like flies from the vaccine. And yet this is your society, and goes on and on about the baby's body parts flying all over in Palestine, and it's your society that goes on and on about all this stuff. Oh, the Jewish space lasers have taken over the United States of America. Like, all this is your society. It goes on and on about all this gay shit, dude. And that same society, this is your society that goes on and on about how everybody's dropping like flies from the vaccine, and how the United States of America has been taken over by Jewish space lasers. You know, this is your society's narrative. And a big part of your society's narrative is that all these homeless people are all just lazy, mentally ill, evil, drug-addicted criminals, vagrant degenerates that are just leeching off of us. Like, this is your society. And they say it's funny how your society's narrative so closely matches that of the psychopath murderer who's being interrogated for murdering someone. They say the same things. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. That person, you know, unfortunately, they're just a lazy, mentally ill, drug-addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerate, failure, you know. It's really unfortunate. But then at the end of the interrogation investigation, come to find out that person is like the lowest, way lower of a form of being than any lazy, mentally ill, drug-addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerate that you could even imagine. Like, those people are like, there is no way to describe the levels of depravity of someone who is like killing people for pleasure and for no reason. But then they're portraying themselves as this upstanding citizen. Oh, I'm a good guy. I'm not addicted to drugs. And this person and people, they're all just lazy and they're all just mentally ill. See, it's all projection. And so your society is projecting. Your society projects all of its own failures on the homeless poor. Oh, they're all just lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, just like in the interrogation. It's the same thing. And again, if you don't believe me, do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Watch these interrogations, these murder cases where they're interrogating the murderer. 9 times out of 10, that murderer is like, "Oh yeah, no, I know that person that you're looking for, and yeah, they were cool, but they were just, it was really unfortunate because they were just mentally ill, drug addict, and they just needed to be institutionalized because it's really unfortunate." And I tried to help them, but they were so mentally ill and lazy and drug addicted and stuff, and that I just had to step back because I'm not like that. Anyways, just an observation. I'm sure that I'm totally wrong. Like, I'm just grasping at straws here. That's all it is.